Sure, I appreciate it. Does this mic work for the room, or is that one?
No, just for the
Oh, just for the video? All right, I guess I have to walk around a little bit. So if everyone can hear me, if I start to fade away from the mic, raise your hand, and I'll remember to bring it closer. I'm not usually used to holding something up like some pop star here. So, thank you very much, Michael. So, my name's Krug. I'm a Senior Solutions Architect for SonicWall. I've been in cybersecurity for over 27 years now. Part of that was being a cryptologist for the United States Navy and Naval Intelligence. I was on offense, not on defense, which explains a lot in the presentation you're going to see this morning. It is not a sales pitch on SonicWall. As Michael said, I'm going to show you some technology elements, some threats, how the bad guys do what they do, why they do it, how it works on you, the victim, and more importantly, what you can do to prevent it. So a general overview of best practice security, all around best practice for your life, in fact. So with that said, usually what I like to start out with is explaining why you need security. And to do that, I have to show you the dark side. I have to show you a peek behind the curtain of what the bad guys do. And for that first one, I usually like to start out with what Michael talked about, everything being connected. And that magic refrigerator, right, that's going to text you. In this case, everyone remembers this is about 8-year toaster. It was very funny in 2010. This is when the Internet of Things became born. But it wasn't until we saw the streaming porn website on the fridge at Home Depot that you realized you need a firewall for your toaster. You have to be able to keep those things in check. When you start talking about cybersecurity, when you start explaining what it is and why you need it, you can literally go on the news. You have to, every day now, find something in mainstream media. You used to have to go and find it on a specific security website. You used to have to go to a dark reading, or you had to go to Hacker News or something like that, or a PC Magazine or something like that to find out something about cybersecurity. Now it's in mainstream media. And just to give you some ideas of some of the big breaches that have happened recently, maybe you haven't heard, or maybe you didn't see where it's taken place, but actually the city of Atlanta got infected with ransomware in March. They're still cleaning it up. They're still trying to fix this exploit where actually a malware shut the whole city down. The MARTA train system had to suspend operations in some cases. They couldn't fill out a parking ticket. That's probably a good thing. But in that particular case, they realized because they couldn't fill out a parking ticket, guess what they figured out? All the penmanship skills for the city kind of went down a little bit, right? Everybody forgot how to read and write, so it became a little bit of entertainment there. They had to shut down Wi-Fi at the world's busiest airport, Hartsfield International, because of a ransomware exploit. That was a huge exploit that they're still cleaning up. The problem is this same ransomware attack actually caused a medical prescription company to be unable to fulfill prescriptions for almost 3 weeks. That's life and death. If somebody can't get their medication, that's life and death. When you see these different attacks start to evolve, and these huge corporations, not small business, huge companies like Boeing being affected by an exploit that actually shuts down their operations, this is a huge impact to every business on the planet. Big, little, small, startups, home users, especially in the SMB space, in the small business, and the SOHO, and the home office users that don't have the security in place to protect it. Or even people, as Michael mentioned, in their residence, in their home. Because these are going to continue to evolve. The threats are going to continue to come up as the networks become more and more connected, like the smart cities that you see coming in the future. Now, just to give everybody a little background on some of the major breaches that have happened over the past few years, nice little game. I'd like everybody in the room to raise your hand if any of the following breaches affected you. Now, me being someone that had a top secret clearance, I was actually affected by the OPM breach a couple years ago. Was anyone affected by this one? Anyone have their personal information leaked online from that one? What about the Yahoo breach? Anyone on that one? Anyone get affected? If you had a Yahoo account, you were breached. Sorry, right? So make sure you raise your hand on that one. Now, you'll see other different ones coming up here, like, for example, the IRS. How many were you affected by that breach? A couple of you, right? So Home Depot, Target, a couple of you affected by that. How many of you were affected by Ashley Madison? Just checking. Serious? No one? Really? Some people usually raise their hand. In fact, if you raise your hand, you get $3,500 now. So just saying, if you want to volunteer that information. Some people actually do raise their hands. It's actually kind of when one guy actually fell for that one. But that's an element, that's a social engineering attack, but an actually true one at that point. But in that particular case, that breach was very epidemic because it included people using their real email addresses, including 15,000 .mil and .gov email accounts. So people were actually using their work email to sign up to have an affair, and of course that led to a nice little target list for other spear phishing campaigns. So kind of interesting when you start seeing the forensics on that one. It's always entertainment. When you start looking at the different breaches and the evolving threats, the bad guys are getting smarter. So when you look at the different exploits that are out there, like Eternal Blue and others, that allow you to hijack devices even easier. So as the security evolves, as your operating systems gets better, as your technology gets better, as your devices get better, as users start to realize, oh wait, I didn't win the African lottery. Oh wait, the IRS is not going to email you your W-2. Right? You're going to start to see some education there. But the bad guys are getting smarter with the different exploits. These are ones that can actually breach all of your security. They're called a zero-day exploit. And once they do that, they can own your device in just a matter of seconds. It's really that simple. We'll do a little experimenting with that shortly. In fact, many of you are already participating and don't know it. We'll get to that one in just a little bit. But when you start looking at the different breaches out there, when you start looking at different headlines, it's really simple to see different things like 1,000 applications in the Play Store for Google that contain spyware. This is actually recording all of your activity, all of your information, all of your data, your kids' activity, what they're doing is for marketing purposes and more malicious content. That's real. Now, many of you are saying, well, that's why I have Apple, but the fruit company has problems too, right? Because you actually saw where their chipset was able to hijack the phone remotely. Just by walking by, I can hijack your phone. It's that simple. Or zero-day exploits in Safari. So no browser, no device, no operating system on planet Earth is safe. You need to make sure you have a good security posture in place in order to prevent that. Now, one of my favorite ones that I actually saw last year was actually one supposedly from the CIA. Now, as someone former of naval intelligence, I'm actually not allowed to comment further on the speculation of this article, but this particular breach was kind of interesting. This was supposedly where the CIA was allowed to hijack your devices, turn it on in your home, and watch or listen to you. It was very interesting. They could spy on you with your own devices. Needless to say, my kids don't have the Xbox 360 Connect anymore. That's in the trash. But in that particular case, I had a nice little discussion with this with my neighbor. Now, he's a Tampa Bay police officer. I live in the Tampa Bay area, so I won't really show his name or give his name or picture, but I actually had a nice little discussion with him. He's a really nice guy. We're really good neighbors. We're always having fun together, throwing fireworks at each other, having a few cervezas, barbecues, all that good stuff, right? He's really into drones. Anyone in the drones really get really into it. I mean, he really gets to the point where he's got the headset on and he's flying the thing. He's walking around in his backyard. He's flying this thing 300-400 feet up in the air. And he decides to mess with me one night because we're good neighbors. We have a lot of fun with it. So he decides to text me. And he says, yeah, why are you up so late? I said, dude, it's almost 1. Why are you texting me? He goes, I love my new drone. And he takes a picture of me through my office window with the drone. This is only because I threatened to shoot the drone out of the sky earlier. But I said, okay, well, payback's coming, right? So I think about it for a couple days. I can't let this slide. I got to get him back. So what do I do? Well, to referencing a little conversation from Mike here. So I decided to text him back. Hey, bud, remember that drone thing? Oh, seriously, man, you got to let that go. I was just playing. I see you too. And of course he goes, oh, cool, did you get a drone? No, bro, I got your TV. By jacking his Wi-Fi, I was able to take a picture of him while he was watching television. Now, in this particular case, it was a lot of fun because I'm holding this as blackmail evidence because his wife doesn't let him wear shoes in the house. She's got the white carpet, and he's got his shoes on while he's watching the game here. So I was able to, I'm holding this over. Of course, he was none too happy about it, and because I did say he was a cop, he actually put all those adhesive parking tickets all over my windshield, like ticket for being an asshole. But he had an LG smart television. Now, how many of you have one of these in your home? Ah, there you go. How many of you went in and reset it to where it's not using the default settings? There you go, one hand. It's got an HD camera and mic built into the front of it, so you can video chat. Really? If you're not using it, someone else might be. How many of you have that TV in your bedroom? This is a little thought, right? So you might want to keep in mind what you have in place in your home. Because when you start looking at the threats, when you start looking at what's taking place, when you start looking at the landslide of attacks that are coming after you, no one is safe. Just to give you a comparison, I don't see a lot of spring chickens in the room, but can anyone raise your hand if you were online in 1996? All right, many of you raise your hands. Okay, can anyone tell me how many computer viruses existed in 1996? 10,000. And 10,000 computer viruses 1996 was the year that we exceeded that threshold, that we hit 10,000 computer viruses. Fast forward a couple of decades. We now see more than 2.2 million new viruses every month. Every month, 2 million new viruses, and counting. That number keeps going up and up. Last year, we recorded over 9 billion new viruses last year were recorded, just to give you an idea. This is what SonicWall is actually capturing. This is what we're seeing on a monthly basis. This is what's coming after you. This is what the bad guys are doing. They're evolving at a landscape, at a speed that nobody can keep up with. You need to have a good security, zero-day threat prevention model in order to stop this. You have to have good security. You have to have good awareness. As Michael said, read your emails. Make sure you do your updates. We're going to talk about some of that this morning. But you want to make sure you're applying that so you can make sure you're secure. Now, when you start to look at this, just to give you an idea of how serious this number is, in one day, we recorded, just one day out of random. Last night, it was 36,000. One day last month, it was over 52,000 new viruses in one day. That's 52,000. That's almost 37 new viruses every 60 seconds. That's what's coming after you. That's the threshold that you have to be prepared for. And the bad guys are pretty clever about how they do this. They get pretty inventive. So if you want to do what I do, the first thing, if you want to be an ethical or quasi-ethical hacker, I should say, if you want to actually see how to do this, or how the bad guys start, it always starts with social engineering. This is the first chapter in any book on how to be a hacker. Because this is the con. This is going after the weakest link in your cybersecurity footprint. That's you. That's the human beings on the network, human nature. That's the weakest link in cybersecurity. That's where training and education are the most important caveats. That's the most important items on your to-do list. So in this case, this is actually a true story from right here in sunny South Florida, where Mike works at Animal Control. Gets a phone call from Joe. Hey, Mike, I'm a contractor. I'm responsible for fixing all the laptops in the county. I see a problem on yours. I'm going to send you a log me in request. I'm going to take care of it for you. This happened about 5 miles from here. Joe's a hacker, gets on Mike's PC, takes the county network to its knees. Took it to its knees. In that particular case, cost almost $500,000 in damage. It lasted 45 minutes. The only reason that the attack stopped was because Mike was union and closed his laptop to go to lunch. I'm not kidding, I can't make that part up. But 45 minutes, it took the whole network apart. So you want to make sure you have this education in place, because this is the lowest form of attack. It's the con. This has evolved way beyond the, hey, you won the lottery. Oh, here's your W-2. Oh, I see a problem on your PC. Oh, I'm from Microsoft. I'm here to help you upgrade to Windows 10. They don't do that. They don't do that. Microsoft does not call you, right? Apple does not call you when they see a problem with your iTunes account. I'm just saying, right? I had to educate my wife on that one. Don't tell her. So in that particular case, you have to be aware of what the bad guys are doing and how they're doing it. You have to have that education, that awareness. Just to give you an idea of how easy it is to become a victim to this, I have a confession for all of you. In 2016, I hacked the election. And I did it with a fake news website. So regardless of which side you are, I won't get political, I went after both sides. Nice little fake news. I did not realize how far ahead of the curve I was on this one. So I set up a fake news website in the summer of 2016. And it actually had nice little ads there, the cool clickbait, looks like some famous news websites, right? InstantKarmaNews.com. Oh, how wonderful a title it was. So in this particular website, if you're on the site for more than a couple of seconds, or you click on any of the little, what's called clickbait down here, and actually stay on this website, well, you get a nice little public service announcement of why you should not go to foreign websites. Websites you don't know, right? This could be the final click your mouse ever takes. So this pops up on the screen and scares the user. To give you an idea of how easy it is for a hacker to infect a large quantity of users, a large mass of people, I set up a nice little thing that you might have seen recently in the news. This is 2 years ago, a Twitter bot with a fake Twitter account, and sent out links to various hashtags, to various other organizations on Twitter. So whether it be to Clinton, to Trump, to Dancing with the Stars, cybersecurity, Associated Press. What did I actually type? Don't click on this. This is how hackers steal your data. What do they do? They click on it. Right? That's exactly what I wrote. Literally, this is how hackers get into your stuff. Right? And they're clicking on it. I said, don't click on this. Associated Press, they clicked on it. How do I know? Because I recorded the statistics. I had 241 victims in 20 minutes time. 241 victims. That was a fake Twitter account, no followers, not following anybody, just sending out the hashtags. 241 victims in 20 minutes. If I was serving up ransomware, malware, etc., I could have been extremely profitable that day. That's how easy it is for bad guys to do what they do. Watch the links you click on. I know human beings are programmed to actually say, oh, it's a pretty in blue, I must click it. That's what they do with those links. Oh, it's a blue thing, I must click it. It's not a Smurf, right? You don't want to click the blue thing all the time. Make sure you look and see where it's taking you first. Right? So just to give you another idea on social engineering, on how it works. This is what the bad guys do. So when the bad guys look at your organization, the first thing they do is reconnaissance. They go and they look at your organization. How many of you have a website that says, here's our contact information? All right, perfect, all of you. So I go online, I look at your website, I get your contact information. Oh, the CEO's name's on there. Cool, there's his email address. All right, oh, let me find some other information on here. I go and look and say, oh, hey, there's his Facebook account. It's not locked down. It's an Instagram account, it's a Twitter account. I go and see everything that you posted. I go start learning some information. And then I craft the attack, not to go after the CEO, but to go after, maybe the office manager or someone else in the organization. I personalize the attack so that when you, the end user, goes online, you fall for that phishing attack. So when the FBI says this is how people are getting into all your accounts, I'm going to show you exactly how this headline makes sense. Or how, for example, 67% of all malware attacks start off in this same way. This is how they do it. This is going to continue to be the #1 method of people getting. So as Michael said, read your emails. Right? When iTunes sent my wife an email and says, hey, here's your thank you for your $49.99 purchase, and it came from a.itunes.com instead of e.itunes.com, that was suspicious. That was not good. Don't click on that. Of course, the SonicWall prevented her from clicking on it, so it worked out well. But some users, they don't actually do it. So the end user goes on, the hacker goes on, creates his malware, does his research, finds out who you are, sends the data to your office manager, and then here's the pretty little email. They make it look nice and formal, put the logos in it, make it nice and creative, and then they send the email. Your office manager then goes and checks his email. For those who haven't seen ransomware, here's a chance. This is an Office 365. How many of you use Office 365? There you go. Logging in. Hey, there's my email from my CEO. Oh, look, it's a pretty and blue link. I must click it. Came from the CEO, right? So I must click on that. They click on it. Last step. There you go. That's the last step. They click on it. Click on run. The file runs, and then they start thinking, oh, the boss told me to do it. So they click on it. Watch the PC starts acting a little sluggish. What's going on? My PC's not working right. It's making weird noises. The fan just went into overdrive. Right? That's when the turbine on the back of the fan sounds like a jet spinning up, right? So start seeing everything taking place. Oh, let's go down here and look at my files. Watch my downloads here. Watch the documents all being re-encrypted right now. Look at the file names. Look how fast it's happening. You just lost all your data. Then this guy pops up on the screen and makes you want to cry. Right, so the actual exploit comes up on the screen and actually infects your entire system. You can't open your data unless you now pay the bad guy to get it back. That's the idea. So this is actually the server ransomware pops up on the screen. This will replicate to your whole network. There's a different form of ransomware like this every few minutes. We record more than 300 to 500 new variants a day of different ransomware. How many of you had to deal with ransomware in your network? No one's been encrypted. Oh, really? That's astonishing. Okay. So in that particular, usually there's always a few hands that come up on that one. How many of you had to deal with it at home? No one? All right. Hey, count yourself lucky. The city of Fort Lauderdale hasn't been so lucky in the past. Just saying, a couple years ago. But in that particular case, you want to make sure you're preventing this breach before it happens, because once this is in your network, you can't actually evade it. It's going to infect your systems. You want to make sure you're preventing this before it happens. The other element that I want to talk to you about today is about passwords. And this is something for your personal life, not just your corporate life, right? Not just your business needs, not just your business applications. Because the bad guys have done research too. So when you start looking what the bad guys are after, they're after your credentials. So to what Michael's talking about, the dark web search, it's really simple to go online and see all the compromised systems that have been breached, and your personal data has been stolen. The bad guys go in and collect it, they harvest it, they sell it online. And it's all about gaining your credentials so that they can get into your systems and be able to access your personal data. And that's how they get into your confidential information, your Yahoo accounts, etc. So in this particular case, one of you may remember the breach from last year, pretty popular, little thing called Equifax, right? They had the winner of the Best Password of the Year award, nice little thing called the admin, and admin worked great. But in that particular breach, it was really simple for them to compromise the system for multiple different levels, but yes, the password did make a difference. This is not a password you want to use. I'm just saying, it's really not the one you want. But the bad guys have done the research. They've actually learned how to craft their technology around you. So just to give you an idea from what the bad guys are doing, they've actually done the research. This is actually a cybersecurity report from 2 hackers that are sharing the data with other black hats, with other serious criminals. And you can see their names here. I did them credit Berserk Zero and Digi Ninja. Right? So they actually created this report on how to better beat your passwords. They've done the research, they've done the R&D and the investment to figure out how to better get into your networks. And to give you an idea, some password intelligence here, password complexity is still a key. It's still something you want to do. To give you an idea of how easy it is for passwords, you can actually start with a password noodle. That was literally 90% of 32 million stolen passwords were just like this. A simple English word, all lowercase, no letters, no special characters. That was 32 million passwords that were stolen, were analyzed, and came up with this data. And this allows the hackers to craft their attack even more towards you. So yes, having a long password, a complex password, it may seem challenging. It may seem something you have to write down or remember or keep track of. But there's something that's actually pay off in spades later when you can actually protect your accounts from getting compromised by a complex password. This password, that little noodle right there, takes less than 8 seconds to crack with a password cracker. Less than 8 seconds. In fact, going all the way down the list, until you get to about here, it only takes a few seconds to crack these passwords. You want to make sure you're using a complex password. But at the end of the day, all of you need to remember one thing. Multi-factor authentication, two-factor authentication on everything you use. Not just your technology in the office, but everything you use. For example, I'm sure many of you use one of these popular services that's coming up on the screen right now. How many of you use it, for example, how many of you use Amazon? Oh, look, down the whole room raised their hand. Okay, perfect. When was the last time Amazon forgot your credit card number?
Never.
It still remembers a credit card from 10 years ago. It's still remembered by the system. It says, oh, you're still using this card? No, that was like 6 houses and 2 wives ago. I don't use that one. So you want to make sure you have updated information. But when you go in there, it never forgets your information. But if you don't have two-factor authentication turned on, and I compromise your password, like the 80,000 Amazon users last year that had their password stolen, I can go on and make purchases as you. And then I can have your purchase into that nice little 7-Eleven drop box. You seen those? The little yellow Amazon boxes on the side of the gas station now where you can send your purchases to? That's literally what the hacker will do. He'll order something as you, send it to the drop box, and go pick it up. That's exactly how they're doing it. So make sure you have two-factor control. Guess what? It's free. How many of you are using it today? Perfect. A few of you are using it. So if we want to make sure all of you raise your hands on. If you're using Amazon, there's no excuse. The way it works, you log into Amazon, you do your purchases. Once you go to the checkout, it sends you a text message and says, hey, enter the magic code or you can't check out. That way no one can use your data without you actually entering that code. All of these different services, so Bank of America, Facebook, Twitter, well, I don't know how secure this is to begin with, right? We all saw the headlines on that one. So Bank of America, Salesforce, Discover, all your different financial websites, all of them offer this for free. And you want to make sure you're using it. If it's free, level of security that's going to make things that much better for you. It's a little bit longer to log in, but I promise you it's worth it when you look at the volume of breached contacts, breached credentials that are out there. Another level of security to take aware of it. Make sure that you're not curious, because we all know what happened to the cat. In this particular case, the cat is your PC. So a nice little Florida, South Florida demo, live, what happens here. How many of you seen one of these little devices called a thumb drive? Any of you have one of these around your office, right? Well, I actually donated some to the mass population here in South Florida by taking 30 of these thumb drives, just 30 of them, and putting some interesting files on them. Things like checking access, finance and accounts, wife pics, XXX pics. And I put these on the thumb drives. Now, if you click on any of these files, you get a nice little public service announcement. Hey, you've been hacked, right? You should be very careful on what you do. What devices you connect to network. Just ask the North Miami Beach PD, who plugged in a brand new, out-of-the-box body camera, and it contained a malware direct from China. Unwrapped, manufacturer wrapping, put it in the PC to set it up, and it had malware on it, infected the entire police department. You want to make sure you're inspecting these devices before you connect them. So in this particular case, I decided to make it interesting, this nice little public service announcement, and I dropped the thumb drives all over South Florida. So some Starbucks, put them in the restroom, by the napkin dispenser, by the picnic table, some business parks, some hotels, Fort Lauderdale Airport, put them out there for everybody to go and collect and find and take them home and play with them, which some people did. 30 thumb drives in 5 days, I had 67 hits. 67 times, I'm sorry, 64. One guy actually clicked on all 4 files, so he doesn't count. But yeah, 64 times somebody picked up the thumb drive and plugged it into a computer. 64 times. There is ransomware and malware exploits out there that's so complex, it will actually infect the USB connector for this clicker. when you connect it into your PC. It'll flash that and put malware on. It's called Annabelle. It's a pretty cool virus. If anyone wants a copy to take home with you after the presentation, let me know. Found it in January. It's really cool. Spread to your Bluetooth Beats, actually. It's actually kind of slick the way it works. So 67 hits in 5 days where somebody picked it up, plugged it into a PC. These could be users on your networks. Having a policy, a written policy that says don't do that, doesn't always help. You want to make sure you have the security in place to prevent the connection from happening in the first place. Another security breach, again, back to having a policy, some training, education for all of your staff. Nice little thing about fiction in Hollywood here. The truth is always stranger than fiction. Now, in 2015, there was a little movie called Black Hat. This had Thor starred in Elephant. Did anyone see this movie? Was it just me? A couple hands. Okay. You didn't miss anything, I promise. I don't usually go to see hacker movies, but it had Thor in it, so my wife made me go. And in this particular case, Thor is the hacker here. But he had one scene in the movie where it was actually pretty cool. He gets his girlfriend to get dressed up, go into a bank, and go to the bank security guard and say, "Oh, I spilled coffee on my report. Can you help me out and print out another one?" Gives him a thumb drive, the security guard, "Well, I'm not supposed to, but okay." Plugs it in PC, Thor steals all the money in the bank. Sorry, spoiler alert, too late. You didn't miss the movie anyway, trust me, just kind of like I get that time back in my life. But my wife saw Thor, so it was a good day. In that particular case, I decided to replicate this test for you in the real world, except since I can't pull off the Thor look, I'm the girl in a pretty white dress. Went online, bought some spy sunglasses, nice little thumb drive, nice little data sheet on the thumb drive, being harmless. Again, I'm quasi-ethical. Right, I push it right up to the line because I know there's an FBI guy in the room. I don't go on the line, I go right up to it, I promise. Leave the cuffs in the car, it's all good. So in this case, take the thumb drive, and I walked into 20 businesses in the Tampa Bay area and said, "I'm sorry, I'm down the hall, my printer won't work. Can you print this out for me?" 18 times someone took the thumb drive and plugged it in. 18 times. I got turned away twice. 18 times someone picked it up and plugged it into their computer and printed out the PDF for me. If that was a ransomware exploit or a Trojan or some other malicious content, I could have easily infected that network. That's all with it, just connecting it. In this particular case, one young lady, I'm very sorry to say, won the Crown Achievement Award. It was a doctor's office. Walked in and she handed it to her and she said, "Is it a virus?" No, of course not. Okay, here you go. She had some level of cybersecurity training. She had been aware that viruses can be on USB devices. Yet she still took it from me because I was wearing a coat and tie, and I must be trustworthy, and plugged it in. That's all it took. She didn't check it, she printed out the PDF, and I said, "Oh, you may want to hang on to that PDF," and walked away. But it was like how not to be hacked, kind of document. But in that particular case, that breach was been very successful. But the training wasn't enough. Obviously, she had been through some form of training. You have to make sure that you go in and establish the policies and the controls to enforce the training. So even though you train them, don't plug it in, make sure the device has been disabled so that they can. All that's achievable. That's always a fun one to do when you go walk into businesses and hand them thumb drives. It's always entertaining. Just to give you an idea how easy it is to get compromised. And this is a nice little experiment we're going to run right now because all of you have already been playing and you didn't know it. Are you guys ready? Nice little experiment? How many of you have ever been to a nice little coffee house or hotel like this and been on the public Wi-Fi? Any of you? Okay. Did you ever look around the room and see who else was in the room with you? Yeah. What they were doing on the screens, on their laptops or devices? Did you see this guy sitting in the back? Yeah. Actually in the Starbucks wearing a hacker t-shirt, right? Running a certain little device, actually scanning all of your traffic when you're connected, able to see everything that you're doing, all the sites you go to, all your logins. It's called the Wi-Fi Pineapple. There's many different variants of it. In fact, all of you have been participating this morning and didn't even know it. So all of your Wi-Fi devices are already mine. I would like all of you to take a look at your wireless devices right now and see if you're connected to Wi-Fi. If you're connected to Wi-Fi, just to give you an idea, your name may be on this list. So right now, on the right screen, sorry, split monitor here. All right. So I am quasi-ethical, remember? So on here right now,
how many devices?
Let's see, we have Shrish's iPhone, we have Cindy Boris's iPhone, we have Michelle's iPhone, we have some kind of Julie Ann's iPhone. Anyone in the room? Anyone is currently connected to AT&T Wi-Fi, Xfinity, Linksys, Netgear. If you're on a Wi-Fi network right now, you're not on those networks. You're on my network. And I can intercept every command, every account, every website, every email, everything you're doing, and it's been on since I walked in the room this morning at 7 o'clock. There's no escape. That's exactly how it happens. And the reason that it worked, and how many, would anyone a victim? Anyone want to raise their hand? Anyone on the Wi-Fi? Okay, a couple of you. Thank you for admitting. So sometimes when I do it in a hotel, I'm usually getting the rooms all around me, so it's kind of it's a lot of fun when I'm in a hotel room, by the way, because when you're doing that, and then you have a place where you can't find your mouse. There you go. So when you're sitting there and setting this device up and you're sitting and you're bored, like last night, sitting in the Boca Hilton, and you want to see what's going on in the room around you, well, this is my hotel room. You can see all my devices set up and can see everything going on in every room in every direction. I can actually see what's going on. That's what the bad guys are doing. That's how easy it is to steal your data. So when you're connected, the reason this hack worked this morning, it is ethical. I didn't actually record any of your data, so promise it was clean. But in that particular case, the reason that it worked, you once joined a Wi-Fi network, and you said, remember this network. Or you have that setting on by default, where it remembers every Wi-Fi network you have ever connected to. So all I have to do is use the same name, and your device will automatically connect to me. You should see what happens when I walk to an airport with that little thing in the battery pack, tucked in my suit pocket, and I can walk down the hallway, and I'm just capturing devices as I walk. So all of you, when you connect to your Wi-Fi devices, you want to make sure which Wi-Fi you're connected to. Never remember a network. Because once you connect to that network, you're a slave to that network. That network owns your device. I can control everything that it does. Every time you connect to Wi-Fi, your wireless device immediately phones home. All your apps immediately update. Your Facebook, your Twitter, your Instagram, your Snapchat, all of them immediately update themselves. And when they do that, guess what they're sending? Your credentials, your passwords, your account information. So now I can start intercepting that and recording it. It's really simple to do. So for that particular case, how many of you are going to join Wi-Fi later today? Just curious. Perfect. They all got the lesson. All right. Perfect. So moving on. Just to give you an idea of how sneaky the hackers are and why you need a good security plan. To show you a nice little malicious attack called malvertising. This is what the bad guys do. I'm going to show you one in real life here too. Hacker goes online, finds a website that's fairly popular, breaches the website, loads up malware onto that particular website, and it could be an encrypted website. A little education on encrypted traffic here for you. In this particular case, the hacker infects the website, then he goes away. He waits for you to load the page. This is how easy it is for you to get breached. Just visiting the page is enough for you to get infected by that virus. It's called malvertising. So the hacker breaches a website and waits for you to come to it. It's called a water holing attack. To give you an idea of how it works, this is something you have to pay attention to on where your websites are on. In this particular case, nice little update. I'm sure none of you have seen this before. Your browser's out of date. Click here to update it. Anyone see that message? A couple of times. Yeah, well, when you look closely, look at the URLs. How many of you look at the URLs of the sites you're going to? All of you should take very close attention to what you're doing. Because I'm sure golftown.org doesn't care about my Firefox update. But if you look at the URL, that's not a URL chosen by a human being. No one wants to type that much when they come up with a website name, just saying. Right? So in that particular case, what the bad guy did is breach the site and load an adware on it to feed the ad to you when you try to connect. Just visiting a bad website now is enough to be compromised. And that includes the encrypted traffic. That's everything is over HTTPS. So you want to make sure you have a solution that can inspect the encrypted traffic for your business networks. Because as the internet becomes more and more encrypted, it becomes more encrypting all the crap along with it. So you want to make sure you're able to inspect that. So to give you an idea of some of the encrypted challenges of what's out there today, I'm going to zip through all of these real quick for you and explain all of these what they are for what they are. So right now there's a huge push to encrypt the whole internet. By the end of 2020, 100% of the internet will be encrypted. Guess what this means? Your legacy firewall, the firewall that many of you have in your network, is no longer effective. It's not inspecting your traffic. It's not protecting you. You want to make sure you're able to inspect your encrypted communications. It is a hard task to do. It's where certain vendors like SonicWall can come in and actually help you do it. But the reason you want to inspect it, and you hear the talk like, oh, it's encrypted. That means it's safe, right? The HTTPS, the S means it's safe and secure. No, it doesn't. In this particular case, nice little website for you here. It is encrypted. It is HTTPS. It is legitimate. The problem with this website is it houses over 100 gigs of live malware. Over 100 gigabytes of live viruses, all executable. And it is an HTTPS website. Do any of you feel comfortable going to that website? No. Perfect, all right, except for me, right? So in that particular case, this website actually lives in my house, so it's actually somewhat safe for me. In that case, this network is actually encrypted. It's 100% legitimate. Your browsers won't have a problem with it, but if you go to it, again, it houses 100 gigs of live malware. The reason that it's important is because you have to inspect your encrypted communications. Just because it's HTTPS does not mean it's safe. When you look at certain legislation, like for example, Michael mentioned GDPR, and I know I was talking with Julie about GDPR earlier this morning. When you start looking at those requirements and complexities of data compliancy, how many of you are under some form of compliancy requirement today? SIPA, HIPAA, PCI, SOX, okay. So you have some data in your network that's worth protecting. How do you keep the data in your network? If someone's connecting to their Gmail, that's an encrypted connection. How are you controlling if they're uploading it? You need to have data leakage controls. You need to have inspection of encrypted traffic so you can control what's going in and out of your network. To give you an idea of the volume of traffic that you're going to see here, just to give you an idea of how much is in your network, last year they said 62%, this year it's 75%, by 2020 it'll be 100% encrypted. But when you look at the volume of encrypted traffic in the average network, this is one typical Office PC, like many of you have, with Office 365. In 1 week, almost 8 gigs of traffic, 99.8% of it was encrypted. Your legacy firewall, your Linksys, your Meraki's, your Belkin, whatever you're using at home, your D-Link, most of your Cisco appliances, most of any firewall that you've had for more than 3 years, most likely is not set up to inspect encrypted traffic. It doesn't have the ability to do it. So make sure you're updating your security policy to stick with this trend. Because even Gartner has said by the year 2020, 60% of all organizations will fail to properly inspect encrypted traffic and be breached by various malware. You want to make sure you're inspecting your encrypted communications. All right, to give you a little talk on what Michael said about the connected threat, how